This is an homage to driving in cars, but it's about a lot more than driving. It's a set of deep meditations on how we might think about our relationship to technology and regulation. Matthew, welcome to Econ Talk.
Thanks for having me, Russ.
Let's start with the role of serendipity in life and in driving. You're a fan of it. Tell me why. Why is serendipity? And for maybe some of our non-English speaking listeners, what is serendipity?
Well, serendipity is something that happens when you don't have a plan, or maybe things don't go according to plan. And in particular, it's when things go well under those conditions, because of course things don't always go well. And I think that's part of the meaning that's in there with serendipity, is that there's some kind of risk involved, and it involves hope. I like to quote my friend Garnett Cadogan, who wrote this beautiful essay, not about driving, but about walking. And he talks about stepping out onto an urban sidewalk, not knowing who or what you're going to encounter. And he says that serendipity is a secular way of speaking of grace. It's unearned favor. And so I try to tie that to the experience of riding a motorcycle through the woods on a trail where you're not encountering other people, but the trail itself is so full of surprises that it takes total concentration. And when I sort of push the pace, beyond my actual skill set, and it goes well, I feel somehow enlarged. I feel existentially energized. So the book begins with this hunch that somehow risk is bound up with humanizing possibilities. And I wanted to explore that.
Yeah. Nassim Nicholas Taleb, who's been on this program many times, calls himself a flaneur, which is a French word which means, I think, to stroll aimlessly, to let your thoughts go where they'll go, to see what you'll encounter without thinking about what that might be. And of course, a lot of our life is spent trying to reduce that uncertainty, that surprise factor. I know when I go out for a, quote, exercise walk, I do a certain loop around my block. There's no serendipity except who else might be strolling. It's a pretty dull, safe experience. And I think it's a great metaphor for how we can think about our lives. We've talked a lot on the program about the need. I think many young people feel they have a need for a plan. And that I understand that need. And for some people, that's appropriate. They want to be, if you want to be a doctor, got to start planning early. It's kind of hard to get there. You can get there later in life, but it's really much, much harder. But for most of us, we're not sure what we want to be. And part of life is finding out what that is. And that serendipity part is enormous. It's a whole different way of seeing life, less as an algorithm to be executed and more as an adventure to be experienced.
Yeah, and I like that last formulation of yours, sort of contrasting it with something more algorithmic. And of course, we've undertaken this grand of social undertaking of rendering things algorithmically and automation. I think one way you could think of automation is that it's an attempt to kind of eliminate those moments of openness or serendipity and replace it with machine-generated certainty on the supposition, well, usually safety is invoked. And there's also seems to be a presumption that human beings are, incompetent or not to be trusted. Certainly in the driverless car space, the refrain is that human beings are terrible drivers. And, it's hard not to agree with that. But there is a kind of consistent, low regard for human capacities that seems to be operating there.